Yo, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, gamers. Welcome back to another video. And today we are talking about the Vengeance campaign. Now, if you're watching this and you haven't played ESO in a while and you're not familiar with Vengeance, what Vengeance is, it was a campaign that ZOS released multiple times for the Elder Scrolls that replaced Greyhost for, I think it was usually like a 7-day period, something along those lines. So it would replace Greyhost, and it had an extremely modified set of rules. So you couldn't wear any item sets, right? There was no like extra bonuses from enchantments or anything like that. The skills were very bare bones, and they were changed to have like certain caps. Like all the heals could only hit maximum of 3. AoE abilities could only hit maximum of 3 people as well. And the initial goal of Vengeance was to create an environment with the increased population in Cyrodiil and to promote like these longer ongoing battles, right? Where there's not ball groups running hundreds of people over in second, right? It was kind of interesting, but the initial point and the goal of the test was to identify issues. So slowly throughout the course of this year, they put out more vengeance tests and slowly added more things to it, and they're going to continue to do so, judging by what they're saying in this article that we're going to go over here and read together and discuss. So let's just jump right into it. With the next Vengeance test coming up in December, we wanted to give everyone an update on the Vengeance testing and where we're headed with Cyrodiil. We recognize that you all have questions about next steps and what these tests mean for the future of Cyrodiil, and we're here to answer some of those questions. We also want to give you as much context and info as possible in the name of transparency. Now, they are being very transparent in this post. They share some kind of wild news. This is going to be some pretty daunting stuff we're going over, and it's just a forum post, a community update. It's probably not going to circulate as much as it should, so I really wanted to make this video and kind of get it out there for the general community to see what your guys' thoughts on this are, because I'm pretty it's pretty bittersweet for me, you know. So next, the goals. To recap where we started and where we've been with the Vengeance tests. Earlier this year, we set out to try some new things with Cyrodiil to address the following specific goals. Significantly increase the player cap in a Cyrodiil campaign so that campaigns feel lively, full, and there's lots of action to enjoy. Cyrodiil was originally designed to support 900 total concurrent players, 300 per alliance. We have not been able to support those target numbers in the current non-Vengeance Cyrodiil campaigns. We are able to hit 900 total concurrent players with the Vengeance rule set. So I don't know why ZOS is so hell-bent on increasing the population cap in Cyrodiil, because on Xbox NA, where I play, and from what I've seen from PC NA creators, is that Greyhost is rarely population locked, and all 3 of the other campaigns are literally completely dead. Never any bars, no population. They're literally just boosting campaigns where people, sell EMP to each other and pass it over and shit. Next, here they say, reduce frustrating latency and related game performance issues in Cyrodiil, especially during large sustained battles, and in turn increase the fun and enjoyment. That's the main thing here is Cyrodiil is extremely laggy in large battles, and it is frustrating. Next here they say, through testing, determine if overall ability complexity is the main cause of server stress and game performance issues in Cyrodiil, especially during mass battles and in high population campaigns. This bullet point we're going to come back to because they discuss it later in this community update, and we've got quite a bit to read through, so strap in. We did test other potential causes of server stress and game performance issues in Cyrodiil during the Vengeance tests, such as item sets and procs, consumable items, siege weapons, quest vendors, etc. Ability complexity was our primary suspected main cause factor, though. So they suspect that the abilities that they designed are too complex for their servers to handle and is resulting in this insane frustrating latency and related game performance issues in Cyrodiil. Test summaries. Since March, we have held 3 Vengeance tests. The next one will begin on December 3rd, 2025. Mark your calendars, guys. For the first test, which was on the PC, EU, and NA servers, so the first test was not on Xbox at all. I did install ESO on my PC and I tested it out. It was honestly, it was pretty crazy. It was super bare bones. All you had was class abilities. That was literally it. It was just the class that you logged in with. Didn't matter what level you were, you just had class abilities that were extremely, extremely changed to work in a completely different way. I mean, it went as far as like the Nightblade's Merciless Resolve, the bow. It had like a 5 second cooldown instead of building stacks, because that's probably just easier to track server side. Anyway, so they kind of talked about that a little bit. This is just the first PC test. For the second test, we welcomed the live console, EU, and NA server communities. Vengeance rule set was largely the same as the first test, with the addition of Vengeance versions of skills from all weapon skill lines and the assault and support skill lines. So it was all the class skills plus weapon skills, and assault and support skill lines. The specific goal of this test was to build upon the baseline we set during the first test, slowly beginning to introduce more skill lines and abilities and evaluate the results. At the end of this test, we saw similar results with better game performance, lower latency, higher population, and larger sustained battles than possible in other Cyrodiil campaigns. This test overlapped with the Zeal of Zenithar event, which we recognize not everyone enjoyed. So the population was not as high on the console tests. Survey results for this test were similar in sentiment, leaning positive. Over 80% of participants rated the added skill lines favorably, okay, good, or great, sharing appreciation for the variety and balance while also noting that there's room to improve. So when they released their survey, the things that you could vote for was like very bad, bad, okay, good, or great. And they're saying over 80% of participants rated the skill lines favorably, and they counted okay, which was the neutral result, as favorable. It's kind of weird, man. Like that's not how a neutral result in a survey works. Like that's not favorable. It's neutral, okay? So that's a terrible statistic for them to share on their side. For the third test, we layered upon what we introduced in the two previous tests and added in meatbag catapults as well as performance-tailored skill lines for the Fighters Guild and Mages Guild, plus an armor skill line with active abilities for light, medium, and heavy armor. We also introduced certain progression on cosmetic systems into Vengeance, including sky shards, mount selection titles, and achievements. So they added the game to Vengeance, which I understand why they're doing all this, right? They're just seeing what they can add and what is stressing the server's performance as they add more things. So I understand that. I appreciate that they're trying to do something for PvP, right? It's but the conclusion and the results that they learned, guys, it's just not it's not good. It's not good. Moving on. Similar to the second test, our goal was to introduce more things that players enjoy and expect in a Cyrodiil campaign and monitor the impact on latency, game performance, and overall experience. We did not run a golden pursuit during this Vengeance test and saw a disappointment about that. We also ran this test during the Undaunted celebration, which some players understandably noted they had a higher interest in participating in versus this test. So players naturally gravitated more towards the PvE event versus some silly PvP test. Even though population in Vengeance was lower during this test, it still performed well, and participant numbers were still higher than our typical population caps in a normal Cyrodiil campaign. Survey results for this test were more mixed than the results following the first two, and we saw less positivity overall. More survey participants noted fatigue with the tests and a desire to be able to play their own unique characters and builds in Cyrodiil, and frustration that the test ran during another in-game event. All right, here we got some interesting results. Their test learnings. Throughout the first three tests, we learned with certainty that in order to deliver a performant Cyrodiil to support a large-scale PvP zone with mass-scale battles, the abilities, procs, passives, etc. must be lighter versions of the ones that exist in the rest of the game. So I think that's good. I think they're finally understanding that they created this system in PvP where you have battle spirit added to your character, whether you're in dueling or in Cyrodiil or whatever, so they can custom tailor all of these sets and all of these skills to work differently while battle spirit is active. It can't possibly be that difficult to implement different versions of the skills. They should have done that a long time ago. The set of four graphs below illustrate the differences in population as well as the server frames per second between the Vengeance Cyrodiil campaign and non-Vengeance Cyrodiil campaigns. On the left of each graph is the non-Vengeance campaigns, and on the right are the Vengeance campaigns on the PC EU and PCNA servers. But basically, all these graphs are saying is Vengeance makes the performance better and increases the cap. Non-Vengeance makes the performance worse and lowers the player population cap. That's basically it. If you want to look at the graphs for yourselves, they're on this website, which I'll have linked in the description of the video. But it's just pretty standard stuff. Next steps. For the test in December, we will introduce Vengeance-specific perks and loadout system for character/class templates. These systems are designed to give you a bit more variety over your builds compared to what was available in previous Vengeance tests. Specifically, you will have more control over your stats with 4 pre-build stat packages called loadouts, and perks are passives that give extra combat effectiveness and bonuses to your characters. The intent with these is to give characters a boost that is comparable to a single 5-piece item set that is purely passive, like Julianos. We'll be adding a Vengeance-specific inventory, which will store all your Vengeance items. During this test, you will also be able to collect regular items while in the Vengeance campaign. Those items will be placed into your regular inventory. Many systems that were previously turned off in Vengeance will also be turned back on, including quest vendors and leaderboards. Scatter shots and oil catapults will also join. The available options for siege weapons and keep recall stones and channeled repair kits will also be added. We'll share more notes ahead of the December test. We'll monitor the impact of these additional systems on latency and game performance as we have during prior tests. So we don't have any clear answer as to what these loadouts and perks exactly are. Maybe you'll have like a single target damage set up, or you'll have a healer loadout. Now, here's something interesting. Lastly, the Grey Host campaign, as it is now, will be up during the second half of this Vengeance test and will monitor server performance for both campaigns. This comparison will allow us valuable side-by-side data. This will be our final Adding New Things test, where we compare the game performance of Vengeance with what a campaign looks like with all the systems turned on. So this is important because the last Vengeance test they had ran at the same time as a PvE event, the Undaunted Celebration. So now we're getting Vengeance side by side with Grey Host, and we're going to be able to directly see if players prefer the Vengeance rule set or the normal Grey Host rule set as it stands now. It's going to be a very clear depiction of who wants to play what more. So for the first week, we're going to be forced into Vengeance. Grey Host won't exist. During the second half of the Vengeance test, I'm assuming it's going to be 2 weeks, and for the second week, it'll have Vengeance and Grey Host, and we can freely choose which one to play. So I do encourage all players to make their own decision and play what they want to play, how they want to play it. I think the Vengeance that they're looking into adding is going to be a lot more accessible to newer, more casual players. Just kind of jump in there and play the game type of thing, where you don't have to grind, hundreds of hours to get the proper gear that you need to get your build going, to get all the skill points for the skills you want to use, and so on and so forth, right? I think it's a fantastic ease of access, accessibility option for the more casual players in this game. As a long-time player myself, I've sunk a disgusting amount of time into the game, and a big turnoff for players like myself is the fact that we're not going to be able to use, the sets that we grinded for to get and stuff like that. And you could argue like, "Oh, well it's only for a week." Well, just you wait, guys. We're almost to the fucking bread and butter of this shit. You can see I'm already losing enthusiasm as we go through this. Anyway, we have another test or two planned for next year for the sake of evaluating healing versus damage concerns. We'll share more about those next year. Okay, fair enough. So, where does this put us, and where do we as a dev team realistically think we're headed for the future of Cyrodiil? With the caveat that the December test still needs to happen, we see two realistic paths forward. Scenario 1. We would open a Vengeance Cyrodiil campaign sometime next year with a special rule set based on the previous and upcoming tests and leave Greyhost open as it is now. Scenario 2. We would close all existing Cyrodiil campaigns and open one or two Vengeance rule set campaigns sometime next year. Before we go on to discuss this, it's important we read the next paragraph. As a dev team, scenario 1 is the one we strongly prefer and is the most likely. We want you to have a choice between playing in Vengeance or Greyhost and would closely monitor both campaign populations to help inform any additional actions we should take moving forward. Guys, they're basically saying here, it's not basically, they're blatantly saying here, we see two realistic paths forward. These are the only two scenarios coming ahead, guys. So, without a question, without a doubt, they are opening a permanent Vengeance campaign. And whether it will sit and exist side by side with Greyhost, which is ideally what they want. From a practicality perspective, guys, what is the purpose of killing the Greyhost population, which is already so shit, man? You rarely get a queue. Like I said before, all the other campaigns are completely dead. They're just used for boosting EMP and passing it back and forth. It's so lame, man. And Greyhost, that's where all the PvP is, right? And even that isn't pop locked sometimes on some evenings. Prime time on a weekday, there's never a queue on Xbox NA. Never, ever, ever. Sometimes on the weekends, sometimes there might be a queue on any of the alliances. So if they were to open up a Vengeance campaign with a 900 player cap, I mean, Greyhost is just going to be immediately dead if people decide to play that over Greyhost, obviously, right? So we're looking at a whole new revamped Cyrodiil, and I think they're too focused on this whole like loadouts and perks when all they really have to do, and what they stated in the beginning here, is all they really have to do is change ability complexity and add proc sets and stuff like that. Add these things to Battle Spirit. Don't change the entire way the game works, from a base standpoint. You just have to alter certain things because they're clearly showing that, adding all these different things to Vengeance, the siege, the NPCs, the quests, that's not what's causing the performance issues. It's their overly tuned abilities and passives combinations. So if they could just custom tailor the passives and abilities so that they interact more fluidly and there's not so many actions being performed all at the same time by the server, trying to compute everything that everyone's doing, all the the custom outfits everyone has. Like when all that shit loads in, the server's gotta, it's gotta work to process through all that data, and it's constantly changing as people press more buttons, blah blah blah. So I don't know, man. I really think they just need to add like the solution would be to add a different form of the abilities to Battle Spirit. And this will work all throughout PvP, like a separate PvP and PvE balance. Because that's what most MMOs have, right? You don't have the exact same bonuses on a PvE set and a PvP set. They usually do different things in most games. Because Battle Spirit, as it stands now, 50% reduced damage and stuff like that, it just doesn't cut it. The 50% reduced damage and healing done, it's not going to cut it. It needs more fine tuning. Okay. So now that we've got that out the way, we are facing the reality that Grey Host, as we've known it, it's completely gone. So let's move on. We recognize that some of our players would prefer there be no changes to their characters effectively how they are in the Grey Host Cyrodiil campaign while enjoying the higher population and reduced latency / game performance issues of the Vengeance campaign. This is not something that will be possible. Based on what we have learned from the test so far, we can offer one or the other, not both, and we want to be transparent about that. So they are claiming that there's absolutely no way that they can make the game performance issues better without making this custom rule set and essentially changing everything about Grey Host. Lastly, we do want to share a few early bits about some things we are working on for PvP. You'll hear a little bit more about these in January. For players who wish to enjoy a PvP experience that is more like Grey Host, we are in the early stages of working on a mid-size PvP space. It will be smaller than Cyrodiil, but larger than our largest battlegrounds, and offer enough room for a 3-sided keep warfare and an overall similar experience to Cyrodiil. The goal with that will be to allow players to have their full suite of abilities, unique builds, equipment, etc., just like in Grey Host. We are also working on a PvP progression system that we're excited to tell you a little more about early next year. That's very cool. I do appreciate the fact that they're introducing a new PvP space. The key here is it's a mid-size PvP space, and it's going to offer 3-sided alliance keep warfare, similar to Cyrodiil. Now, if it's mid-size, that's going to be the size of the map, right? The map is going to be smaller than Cyrodiil, and not only that, but the population is also going to have to be smaller so that we don't have to continue dealing with bad performance and lag. So that's great that they're introducing that option. The problem is, though, everybody that has been PvPing and that wants to, play the way the game has been for over a decade now, they're going to have to go into this mid-size, mid-population PvP space, which is constantly going to be population locked. Constantly, guys. I can already see it. And they're adding more PvP spaces where they're not addressing the real issue, which is like the PvP balance is so far off and no one's playing PvP because of blatantly how shit it is, right? It's it's so bad, guys. Right now it's in a really bad place. TLDR, we are facing the reality that Grey Host as we know it is going to be dead. Whether they go through with scenario 1 or scenario 2, it doesn't matter. It's going to have the same result, right? The Vengeance population is going to take Grey Host players away from it, from an already dead and dying campaign. Maybe Vengeance will encourage more players to come into PvP that maybe haven't played it much, because it'll be a lot more accessible the way they're doing it. So that's definitely a hope and a want. So they're trying to revitalize PvP in some way, but it's a pretty drastic change here. Pretty drastic change what they're doing, especially considering when Vengeance first came out, they did assure us that this was only tests, but apparently the tests went so badly and they found the results to be so bad that there's no way forward besides lazily including this test campaign as the future of PvP. So, whether you're a casual PvP player, whether you don't play PvP at all, whether you're a sweaty, long-time PvP player, comment down below, guys. Let's have a discussion. What do we think about the future of PvP here? Are we cooked? I think we're cooked. See you next time. Thanks for watching.